Good morning. My name is AnneReid from Speaking Lives, and I help people create special memories. Now let me just ask you some questions. How many of you have a digital camera? Everybody? Pretty much? How many of you keep a diary that's not a work diary? No, not so many people now. So these are ways that people have of recording what's been happening. And in my wonderful 1930s hat box here, I have an example of somebody's lifetime in diaries. How long do you think it would take to go through these diaries to find the pertinent things that the future generations might want to know about that person? I'll tell you a story about that. And the other thing is, how many of us have, possibly when somebody's passed away, a trunk full of photographs? And here's some examples of black and white photographs, colour photographs. But are their names on the back? Do you know who they are? Some people do it, and it's wonderful because, for instance, this is a picture of my mum, and I hadn't seen that picture before, and that's her first husband. She was engaged when she was 21 on Valentine's Day. They were married in the April, and she was a widow before the end of the year. So much happens that you don't know about if it's not written down and it's not recorded. But photographs only tell half the story. Even if you have got the person's name on the back and where it happened and what the event was. Dumfries Academy, Primary 4. I've got the names of all the people on the back now. Took a while to work out who everybody was. And the sort of things that you might want to think about when you're trying to recall memories are important dates, where family and friends were from, so that if you're looking up official records, then you know where to start. Wartime memories I've mentioned, but what did people do for leisure? The chap I was speaking to last week, they just used to play in the street. You know, none of this sitting in front of a computer, which children tend to do now. I don't know if they would know how to entertain themselves now, compared to perhaps when we were growing up. This is what we produce. A CD. It's an audio record of somebody's reminiscences. And so I will sit with the person and ask them questions. And in the end, you'll end up with an audio CD of me asking the questions and them giving the answers. Now, why is that important? Well, photographs, you don't have the voice, you don't have the accent, you don't have the family sayings to hear. And with this, and the laughter, some of the laughter is just wonderful. The way we do it is face to face. And initially I would go and meet the person. So let's do a case study. Somebody's godmother who was 90 plus, and this chap was turning 60, and she was in a residential home. She couldn't get out to the shop. She wasn't well enough to go to the shop. She didn't know how to use the internet. She said, what a brilliant idea. I don't know what to get him for his 60th birthday, so let's commission a live interview for herself. I went and explained the process of, we have prompts to help you remember. And she said, well, that would be really useful because I do find, remembering things quite difficult. So I equate it to a 3-drawer filing cabinet. We all know people who are older whose long-term memory is really good. They can remember very clearly about their childhood or an event in their teenage years or when they were starting work. But that's sort of the bottom drawer, so that's really easy to get to. And then the middle drawer is when you start work and you start meeting a lot more people and you have a lot more experiences. You may be starting new hobbies and starting a family. And then that's the middle drawer, so that's getting fuller, that's more difficult to access. But then the top drawer is really quite hard it's a bit rusty to get into that information. But if you start at the bottom, with the easier stuff, you can see the cogs. You can actually physically see the cogs getting oiled and rust coming off, and it's fascinating. And she said, this is wonderful, I'd forgotten about that. And yes, I used to work with my godson's mother, and yes, I used to do this. And the advantage of that was she gave her godson this CD, and he lives in France, so they listened to it in the car, driving back down from Edinburgh to the south coast to get the ferry. And his children had never heard anything like it. You know, a woman in her 90s would have been, you know, pioneering working woman in a men's profession. And the other advantage was the carers in her residential home now have access to that information about her. And as her memory goes, not only can she listen to it and recall things from her past, but it fills in some of the necessary information that the carers would find useful as part of her care plan. And it means they can have a meaningful conversation with her about things that are relevant, not just talking about the weather and small chit-chat. And I suppose most of us know somebody who's in a care facility or has carers. And how much time do they get one-to-one in a day? 20 minutes, half an hour, something like that. So to have somebody come and sit with them and chat for 3 hours about them, to concentrate on them, that's a gift in itself, never mind the finished product. People use Speaking Lives for all sorts of events. Sometimes a family will club together and give it to an older person as a gift for them, but actually it's for themselves as well. Somebody recently had a new baby, and he said, oh, why don't we do reminiscences from my childhood, so that when he gets older he'll know about where I was coming from and what happened to me. Another occasion when people have commissioned interviews is when they're retiring. It's a company story. A lot of people who are in their 50s and 60s, when they left school, they went to one job, and that was it for life, whether it was the civil service or a financial company or something like that. It's very difficult to think of what to get people when they're retiring. You know, a gold watch, are they really going to use a, you know, super duper pen? But this is something that, again, focuses on them and helps them remember and celebrate their history of their working life. We also do gift vouchers. So if you want to give the idea of something to somebody and you maybe don't want to pay for the full 3 hours, you can give them a gift voucher and then they can top it up themselves. Here's a couple of quotes of what people have said about Speaking Lives, and it really highlights what I said before, to hear somebody who's gone, to hear their voice, and for them to realise that they weren't so ordinary, they really were quite special. You don't want to be turning up at somebody's funeral and that's the first time you learn that your grandfather was had a very important part in the army in Korea or something like that you never knew anything about. Not all the stories are good stories, some of the stories are sad stories, but the memory prompts, one thing we do agree is that if there's a question they don't want to answer, they just say move on or have a signal, and that can be edited out. And all this information is kept confidential. There's only one copy kept, so that if people want further copies afterwards, and it's encrypted in a way that it can't be accessed by anybody else. But we do give a percentage of our profits to the Alzheimer's charities, because just last week on Radio Scotland, Dr. Graham Stokes was talking on the morning programme about how memories and reminiscing is absolutely key in dementia care. That's a direct quote from him. So we're very pleased to do that. And I just love it. I found Speaking Lives on the internet when I was looking for a part-time job, and my reaction was, oh, I wish I'd known about that before my mum died, particularly my mother, because she was an only child, and so all that information's gone with her. So in speaking to people about my job, which I love, it's really, if it's not something for you, not a problem, but please make a start in writing the names on the backs of the photographs, finding the information out about your family. And if it's somebody, you might hear somebody saying, oh, I've no idea to get so-and-so for their golden wedding anniversary. Absolutely ideal. So thank you very much. That's AnneReid from Speaking Lives, talking about memories and memory.